Every day here at 90.5, we continue the tradition of giving you the world's best jazz. And today, it gets even better, as New England's top jazz artists perform for you live in the WICN Performance Studio. This is Live Jazz New England. Here's your host, jazz pianist Pamela Hines.
Good afternoon and welcome to Live Jazz New England. I'm your host, Pamela Hines. And my guest today is drummer and educator and composer Yoron Israel, with Henry Lugo on bass and Laszlo Gardony on piano. Today's show is being brought to you with support from Ed Heider's Mediterranean Marketplace at edheiders.com. Our drum set has been provided by the Joy of Music program at jomp.org, and our piano is provided by pianomill.com. Yoron is a longtime educator at the Berklee College of Music, and his recent DVD, Creative Jazz Improvisation for Drum Set, and a forthcoming book are available on his website, www.yoronIsrael.com, and his Facebook page. He's also got a new release this summer called This Moment, and he's played at just about every major jazz festival in the world, and with every legendary jazz artist you can think of, including Ahmad Jamal, Joe Lovano, Cedar Walton, Horace Silver, and many more. His recent release, Visions, the music of Stevie Wonder, is a brilliantly arranged and played work of art. Today we're going to hear some of his tunes from each of these projects and try to squeeze in a little conversation about his amazing life. Right now we're going to start with the music. This is a tune written by Yoron for this upcoming CD, This Moment, and this tune is called Here Today, Gone Tomorrow.
Thank you very much. You guys are a mighty audience, and we appreciate you being here. As we said earlier, that was a composition entitled Here Today, Gone Tomorrow, and it's actually a featured composition on our upcoming CD release. That release is going to be entitled This Moment. And we like to play something now from our most recent recording, and that recording being Visions, the music of Stevie Wonder. And this is a composition arranged originally for our quartet, but today arranged for our trio. And this is entitled Creepin'.
You are listening to Live Jazz New England on WICN. I'm your host, Pamela Hines, and my guest today is Yoron Israel with Henry Lugo on bass and Laszlo Gardony on piano. I have a whole bunch of questions, but I guess my first question is, you grew up in Chicago, and you certainly had the choice to live in New York, and you taught a little bit there, spent some years down there. So what made you decide on Boston as your home?
Well, I spent I grew up in Chicago and moved to New York because, that's where the industry, the music that I knew I wanted to be involved in and the kind of career that I envisioned myself having, New York seemed to be the logical place. So I spent 15 years in New York, as you alluded to earlier, touring and traveling and performing all over the world. And also, I did do some teaching there, and I actually finished my education there at Rutgers University. I finished my master's degree there. And so all those things have always been a part of just what that's been kind of the balance that has been kind of my balance of life, so to speak. But what happened in terms of moving to Boston, I always enjoyed coming here. I used to come here all the time to play at the Regatta Bar or Scullers or different places. And it was actually a full-time position at Berkeley College of Music that brought me to the Boston area. And upon coming to interview for the job, long story short, I'm here now 15 years later. So, I moved here in 2000 and have been assistant chair of the percussion department and professor there for the last 15 years. You just got done with the percussion festival, and that's a pretty big deal. We've got well attended, and you've got lots of people from all over the world coming to that. Yeah. That's something that is kind of one of those things. People say, well, what's the favorite part of your job? I must say, even with all the work that it takes to bring that together, that's one of my favorite parts of what we do. And it's just great to seeing, young people come to the festival so eager, so hungry for the world of percussion, and we're able to facilitate some aspect of that. And generally they go back so enthused and so ready to get into the practice rooms and develop and evolve their artistry themselves. So that's a major part. We just finished this weekend. We did it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was a huge success. So many highlights. I could go on, but I must say we did a faculty concert on that Friday, which Laszlo happened to be a part of, and that was really quite inspiring in itself. Because during the course of a school year, we don't get a chance to really play together or much see each other. So it was great to have some of our faculty come together and formulate a concert like that. Well, the list of people you've played with is just immense. So I'm going to just pick two out of the hat because personally I'm very curious. Mm-hmm. What was it like to work with Ahmad Jamal and then Horace Silver, who seems like a little bit of a different personality from Ahmad? What was it like to work with them? Yeah, both of those gentlemen were really amazing, and I would say I'll start in the commonalities between them there were some. In spite of, what you might hear, they're definitely coming from two different styles of even piano playing, let's say. But the similarities that really touched me and continues to be a major influence on me as an artist. Both of those gentlemen, when they pretty much left it all on the bandstand every night, each and every night. And at the time, in both cases, that's when we would tour and we would play, 6-7 nights in a city, night after night. And every night brought new challenges, and every night, they just, in spite of whatever ages they were at that time, they were certainly older than probably us in the band. Well, I know that for a fact, but it was like they were just teenagers. When they got to the bandstand, no matter what else happened during the course of the day, during the course of the week, hours before, minutes before, whatever drama was going on. When we got to the bandstand, it was just a pure sense of, this may be actually the last time that I ever do this. So I'm going to, give it everything I have. So it's that kind of mentality that I found in those gentlemen. And aside from that, the particulars are very different. Ahmad Jamal, what he's able to get out of a trio is phenomenal. Just the orchestral sense that he has. And a lot of it is done spontaneously. If you ever seen Ahmad Jamal play, he gives these signals with his hands and things like that. And, actually it got to the point where there was a period where he stopped even doing that because we were so in tune with each other. Nice. We just knew, what to do. But he had a really uncanny sense of bringing out these timbres out of just 3 instruments: drum set, bass, and piano. No other instruments. Sometimes the bass players, depending on who they were, would play electric bass. But just a sense of dynamics, the sense of just knowing the various parts of the trio, not just the drum set, but the orchestral parts of the instrument, whether it be a bell of a cymbal or a tap on the rim of the drum or the tap on the shell. I mean, he was very in tune to those minute details and would be able to communicate it to some degree, either directly or indirectly. And Horace Silver, to contrast that, I felt that he had the same kind of command over what we know as the jazz quintet, trumpet, saxophone, typically tenor. Right. And he had a really, detailed concept about how that quintet should sound. And how it should arrange. Even to a quick story, when I first started playing with Horace, at the time, traveling was a lot easier than it is now. So it would be nothing to, bring a whole set of drums on a tour and have the support, to carry it around. That was pretty common at that time. But sometimes it was problematic, and you didn't do that with everybody. You didn't bring a set of drums on the road. And with Horace, interesting enough, I'll never forget maybe my first gig or so with him. I asked him, well, do you want me to bring the drums? Do you want to deal with that extra expense? And he looked at me like I had about 4 heads. And he said, what do you mean? That's part of our sound. Your drums. You have to bring your drums to, for this quintet to work. That's the sound we're used to. That's the sound that is now a part of everything. That sonority is part of this quintet. So just those minute details were really astounding to see, these gentlemen, in that light.
Such intense awareness, of every aspect of the group that they're in. Yeah. And then continuing on now to Laszlo, and it's very, very apparent that you've been playing for a while. You've got the eye contact almost constantly. It's just it's awesome to watch you, not only to listen and hear the chemistry, but to watch it and be able to witness it too. So how long have you been playing together now with Laszlo and Henry?
Well, with Laszlo, I'm blessed to say Laszlo was one of the first musicians that I got a chance to meet and work with in Boston. So it's been 14 years or so, and I think even before I started playing in his trio, which I still play in his trio and this larger ensemble as well, we had maybe played a couple gigs with other people, maybe some singers in the area. And even at the time, I was working a lot with David Fathead Newman. And there were times when he would recommend, or he would ask me for recommendations when he played in the area for pianists. And I think I'm sure that Laszlo did a couple of those gigs before I started working with his trio. So it's a musical relationship that goes back a long ways now. So really thankful for that. And because there's something that happens in music that's kind of intangible, that goes beyond the notes and the chords and the melodies. It's that human connection.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't give that enough credit, but it's a very powerful thing. And I think that had a lot to do with the music that we all love from the 50s and the 60s. I think it's not about necessarily, the transcription of the notes, but it's that energy that those musicians were able to create by continuously playing together, either a concert or rehearsing or recording. But this continuum and this communal type of spirit is something that we hear, which I think is just as important as the notes and the chords and things like that. Speaking about our bassist, Henry Lugo, Henry's been playing in my quartet for about 2 years now. And a similar thing, we met on someone else's pianist in Connecticut. The pianist and I go back a while too. We went to graduate school together, but Noah, and we wound up on a couple gigs with him together. And I just instantly loved his sound of the bass that he has, his touch and his sound. And at the time I was putting together, just in the infant stage of putting together the Visions recording, as well as my quartet that I call High Standards. And I knew when I put things together, I wanted him to be the bass player, and lo and behold, that happened. He's not on the record Visions, but he will be on This Moment.
Okay.
But it's just great for any bass players that might be listening, or this whole drummer bass player thing. It's a very important relationship in any band, any style of music. And for me as a drummer, I always look for the sound quality, because to me, that's just always been important for the bass. I can give some quick stories, but how that came about. But it goes back to my days in Chicago. A lot of times I would play with bassists who, let's say, not always had the best technique, and sometimes even some people would say maybe played out of tune. I had that kind of relationship. But those same bass players would always be working, because it was just the tone and the sound and the foundation that they gave to a band. And that's something that I find that I'm always looking for, when I play with a bassist.
All right. Well, speaking of your upcoming See This Moment, we have time for a few more tunes. Would you like to do a few more for us?
Sure. We're going to play a blues. Speaking of Chicago, growing up, my mentors would often tell me, no jazz performance is complete without the blues. So keeping that tradition in mind, we're going to play something entitled The 11th Hour, and this is written by the great pianist Mulgrew Miller.
Excellent.
Thank you. We're going to play something now, kind of previewing our new recording that'll be coming out no later than the 1st of August, but we're actually looking at a July 20th release date, and that recording is entitled This Moment, and this is a composition from that record, or that recording, entitled Her All.
had a huge number of questions for you, but now we've got about 5 minutes left. But I do want to ask you about the moment that you had been playing for all these phenomenal musicians. What was the moment that you said, I want to try being a leader, I want to use some of my compositions, let me step out here? What was that moment for you?
You know, I've actually, there was no, like, really specific moment, because it's something that I've actually been doing since I was very young. I mean, from the first time that I started playing, particularly jazz, but music in general. I've just always kind of had that urgency, if you will, to just be the one who kind of facilitated and stimulated things, you know, even before I was even playing drums and percussion. I played piano, and then I moved to trumpet. And I remember even as a young trumpet player, you know, I would want to get together with other horn players so we could learn these, Earth, Wind, and Fire type lines and things like that. So it's really kind of just been an evolution more than a one particular time. But even in college, a very important moment to me, actually, career-wise, I think. I'll never forget, I was maybe a junior or so in college, undergraduate school, and I had a chance to put together a band that would open for the great Kenny Burrell. Wow. And Kenny Burrell came to Chicago. He actually used a rhythm section of veteran Chicago players. And the organization that put on that festival wanted a young band to open for them. And it was actually a quintet that I had together at the time. I forgot what the quintet was called. It might have just been the Yoron Israel quintet. But from that, Kenny Burrell was one of the first people that I actually recorded a major recording with, and was the first person that I went on tour with when I got to New York. And he remembered me from that experience of that band that we played that opened for him. Oh. So it's always been kind of an organic process for me. Even though I was playing with other people, I always felt the need to explore my own individuality and artistry.
And we're going to get a chance to hear some of Yoron's latest material on his upcoming CD being released in July called This Moment. What would you like to close out with? It's been fabulous having you here today. This has
Thank you so
Laszlo
much.
Gardony and Henry Lugo and Yoron Israel. And so we want to thank you, but what would you like to give us to head out the door?
Well, we'll play a song called Better Days, an original of mine, actually on a previous recording entitled Basic Training. And before we get to the music, though, I just want to thank the audience that took the time to come by. Give yourselves a hand. And also for the remarkable things that WICN has been doing and continues to do. Thank you, Pamela, for having us. And great thanks to this great radio station.
Well, I'd like to thank Yoron Israel, Henry Lugo, and Laszlo Gardony for being guests on the show today. You can find out more about Yoron's incredible biography by visiting his website, www.yoronisrael.com, and at that website you'll get information on his new release, This Moment, and upcoming appearances at Scullers with Ann Hampton Calloway. Thanks so much for joining in today. There's so much more going on concerning his CD projects. I'm sure that if you go to his Facebook page and website, you can find out more. Thanks to our sponsor, Ed Hyder's Mediterranean Marketplace, celebrating 40 years in business at edhyders.com. Also thanks to George Evans at Piano Mill, and also for today's Baldwin Baby Grand, and for the Joy of Music program for today's drum kit. Until next time, this is Pamela Hines for Live Jazz New England on 90.5 WICN.
big thank you to the great drummer Yoron Israel, also Laszlo Gardony on piano, and Henry Lugo on bass. A huge thank you for their performance today on Live Jazz New England with host Pamela Hines right here at 90.5 WICN. This is 90.5 WICN Worcester Jazz Plus for New England. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and listen online at WICN.org. Thank you so much for tuning in. Live Jazz New England comes back at you in late July, the last Wednesday of every month at 2 o'clock. Be with us. I'll be back with Afternoon Jazz in 1 hour. David J. is standing by right after NPR News. It is exactly 3:01.